Brian Westbrook, do you think that there's a small part of Bill Belichick, when no one's around and no one can hear it, or it's just him and himself alone, that thinks, ugh, maybe I regret moving on from Tom Brady?
No, I don't think there's any part of Bill Belichick that regrets anything that he does. He makes these calculated decisions
in his whole life.
And he says, this is the way that I'm going. To me, it was a money thing with Tom Brady. Tom wanted a little bit more. I think he was offered 2 years for 50. And Bill Belichick said, we're not going to pay you more than that. We've allotted this amount of money for the quarterback position, and that's all we're going to pay. Here's the thing that if I'm Bill Belichick that I would regret. I would regret not putting more weapons around Tom Brady. You see what he's able to do in Tampa Bay with all the weapons around him. I would regret that. I would also regret bringing Cam in and not restocking the cupboard. You didn't get any more weapons. Your offense is not better this year. It's worse, not just because of the quarterback position, because there's no other people around you. You came back with the same guys at an older age, and they're doing the exact same thing that they did last year. That's a complete oversight in my mind if I'm Bill Belichick. That's the thing that I would regret, not necessarily the Tom Brady thing.
Hey, B, he should regret it. But Bill Belichick, let's give him his flowers right now. He's done some great things. He's made some amazing decisions that no one in the National Football League would make. That's why he's Bill.
I wonder if we may have lost Brandon for a moment. What I think Brandon was going to say is, Belichick, listen, nobody can question the career. Whether it's flaking on the Jets to go to the Patriots, great decision. Benching Bledsoe when he was the highest paid player in the history of the league, great decision. Trading for Moss in 07, leading to the 18-0 start to that season. Brandon laid all those out beautifully earlier. No one doubts Belichick's pre-Brady decision moves. So what I would ask is, why are we doubting this one? Because Brady's coming off his best game in 3 years and Cam's coming off his worst? Because right now Brady's stock is trading at a multi-year high and Cam Newton's stock is down on the penny shares? Guys, both sides are gonna regress to the mean here. And the reason why I would argue Belichick should not regret this at all is, if we are going to hold the Patriots to the standard they have held themselves the last 20 years, which is anything short of competing for or winning a Super Bowl is a failure, then he made the right decision, because with either guy, the Patriots were not going to be good enough this year in that conference to compete for a championship. So, Brian, you go with the younger, cheaper options so you can find out, do we have our answer in-house? Do we need to go draft a quarterback? Could it be Stidham? No. Could it be Cam? Maybe. But Brady was never going to be the long-term answer. So if he wasn't going to be a championship answer for this year, and with this Patriots team he absolutely was not going to be, then I believe they made the right decision, and I believe Belichick still believes he made the right decision.
Well, Nick, this is where I disagree with you at, because if you put some weapons around Tom Brady, we see what he's able to do. We see that in Tampa right now, that there's no weapons around him. Additionally, if Tom Brady comes back to that football team with weapons around him, then some of those guys, in my opinion, that opted out because of the COVID situation, they would still be back on that defense. Their defense would be playing better. So you have a better offense because you have more weapons and you have Tom Brady, and you have a better defense because some of the guys that have opted out would still be there. So to me, that would have been a much better situation than the situation that you're in currently, where you have a quarterback without OTAs, without minicamp, now trying to learn a totally different offense that it seems that Cam doesn't understand all the concepts that they want to use in that offense from week to week. They don't have very much of a run game. And now the defense is missing some of their best starters because of the opt-out. How do you expect to win? And you mentioned the division. The Bills are a decent team. I still don't think that if you added weapons and Tom Brady on that Patriots team, that the Bills would beat the Patriots in the division this year. All the other teams in the division are still building at this point.
Jenna,
You got a headache? Wow.
who was the star of Back to the Future?
Michael J. Fox, please.
Michael J. Fox, that's right, everybody. It wasn't Bill Belichick. There was no hooded sweatshirt coming in like, hey, what's going on, Doc Brown? You know why? Because Bill Belichick doesn't go backwards. We're going forwards. And granted, Back to the Future 2, they did go forwards, but that's regardless. We're not here to talk about the divorce of Tom Brady, who put his house up for sale in August. And if Bill Belichick came with hat in hand with his 6 Super Bowl rings from the Patriots and 2 from the Giants, like, oh, please, 42-year-old man, will you please stay? No, if you want to go, keep it moving. Cam is hurt? I don't know. We're not in as bad shape as everyone thinks, to the point where we have to go back and start rewriting history. Like, should he have traded for Jimmy Garoppolo? Oh, what should he have done with Drew Bledsoe? I just don't care anymore. Man, I'm in a granted.
I've got a question.
I'm in a bad spot with this. I'm torn. Yeah. But this is too much. Like, should we? Brian wants us to restart. Oh, Mohamed Sanu. Should we got him? I don't care. I'm going forward, Brian. Going forward.
I got a question for Brandon. Now that we got Brandon back, Brandon.
Welcome back,
if Tom Brady were on this year's Patriots, are they Super Bowl contenders?
Absolutely. I mean, they've done it the last 20 years, and the reason why I'm probably getting kicked off is because we're talking about the Patriots, and I'm in owner Stephen Ross's building. So I'm staying in one of his properties, and he probably is cutting me off because we're talking about the Patriots, and we don't talk about the Dolphins enough on this show. Stephen Ross, stop cutting off my internet, brother.
Brandon, why would they have been contenders this year with Brady when they weren't last year?
Listen,
they weren't contenders last year.
They were last year.
Listen, thank you. Listen, Nick, thank you for picking up where I left off. You listened to me earlier, and I highlighted how this is the worst decision Bill Belichick has ever made in my mind. You had the Jets. You talked about that. You talked about Randy Moss. You also talk about that era from going from Bledsoe to Brady. Right now, I think this is a bad decision. It only took 7 weeks to figure it out. And it's not because of Cam Newton and how bad they're playing, but you had no answer at the quarterback position. B, I heard you talking about, well, it was a money thing. Well, if Tom Brady asked for $26 million, $27 million, you give it to him. He's delivered 6 Super Bowls. How much is a Super Bowl worth? That is the question. That is the question. Tom Brady effect, he goes to Tampa Bay. And all of a sudden, they go from the worst penalized team to the best. They go from one of the worst offensive lines to the best. The defense is bad, and then they're better. Well, actually, they're the best. And then they also turn the ball over at an alarming rate, and now they're one of the best. So, yes, Nick, Tom Brady on the Patriots, they're a contender because he's proven it. And that's why I'm so disappointed in them getting divorced and going their separate ways, because they have done something at a high level that we haven't seen in sports.
I know, and I agree with Wilds, though. I think Brady was gone long before we even heard about that divorce. All right, Brian, we got to get your take on this. Todd Gurley tried to pull a Brian Westbrook on Sunday, accidentally fell into the end zone. Lions got the ball back, they drive down the field, yada, yada, yada. You know what happened next. Raheem Morris took the blame for it, saying, I put that on me 100%. But, Brian, who deserves the blame on this one?
Well, I'm sure there's some blame to go around here. You know, Todd certainly is been in the league long enough to understand that you got to go down right at that point because you don't want to give the ball back to the other team. You know, but I'll tell you, it's really hard to do that. As a player, the only thing you think about every single game, every single time you're practicing is scoring touchdowns. And so when you have that opportunity to score, you try to get into the end zone. Here's the hard part about Todd's situation. I think the Lions did a good job of faking him out. They made it look like they were actually trying to tackle him, and he was churning the legs, trying to break tackles. And by the time that he realized they weren't actually trying to tackle him, that's when his momentum was way too much, and he fell into the end zone.
Can I give?
I'm sorry. I know we want to talk about the Falcons, but but this jump cut against Terrence Newman right here, unbelievable. Like, bro, we forget how awesome you were. You almost scored.
Hold on, Brandon.
Nick's got a take. Nick's got a take.
Wait a second. Because Brian was amazing, but I got a hot take 15 years later. This was a bad play. You guys were up 4, Brian. You guys would have won anyway. Get the touchdown. No. You're not up 1. It's not a Todd Gurley situation. You're up 4. Score the touchdown. It's a bad job by you there. And I didn't even have you on my fantasy team. You could have gone up 2 scores. You go up 2 scores, Brian.
No, you don't go up 2 scores because you don't know. You
And
don't
pat
want
the
them to get the
stats.
ball back. You never go up 2 scores. Here's the thing
Pat
for
the
Atlanta.
stats,
If
B.
I'm-
This could have been another
if I'm Raheem
touchdown.
Morris, think about this. You could
this
have
could've
just
been-
kneeled the ball, put the ball in the middle of the field, and just kneel
Yeah,
it. You don't have
that's
to
what he
run a
should've
running
done.
play. Just kneel it. That's what he
That's
should have
what he
done.
should have
All
done.
right.
That's right.
Pat the stats,
You're right
B.
about that.
Score
You were
more than
wrong
that.
about
Pat
not
the stats.
scoring. There's a
I got
bad
a
play
question
by
for you.
Westbrook.
Did Sunday's
Gets way too much credit
Seahawks
for it.
loss also spell an MVP loss for Russ? And are there now more names in the hat? Next, first things first.